Welcome to Ragnar Riders Shop Talk, the ultimate pit stop for all things two-wheeled and roaring. We are mostly ordinary guys who live and breathe the motorcycle lifestyle. From our personal journeys to gripping product and accessory reviews, bike builds that redefine the road, the latest industry buzz, and a sneak peek into our future travels, consider this your front row seat to our motorcycling odyssey. So kick back, relax, and let the engines roar as we dive deep into the world of chrome, leather, and the sweet symphony of the open highway. Welcome to Ragnar Riders Shop Talk, where the rubber meets the road and the stories unfold in the wind.
Welcome to another episode of Ragnar Riders Podcast, our Shop Talk, and we are here. I am Randy Boren. This is
DJ Seeley.
All right, so we are here to continue our amateur input and conversation on motorcycles. Shall I use maybe others' cliche term and say all things two wheels or three? We have talked the first 2 or 3 episodes that we've done so far on camshafts, cam plates, oil pumps, basically stage 2 builds, and there's still a lot more of that to discuss. But we feel like this episode maybe we want to venture off into tuning, which is a hot topic among motorcyclists, and I guess really I should say Harley owners more than anything else. But I don't know how many KZ 650s you've got out there that are getting tuned, or Gold Wings and things of that nature. If you own one and you've done that, then hey, give us some feedback on it. But yeah, we definitely know the Harley world is a tuning world, and again, like we've said before, the aftermarket world is has a plethora of options.
There are, yeah, and like Randy said, if you have a BMW GS 1250 or 1300 that you have put a tune on, I'm in the market for one of those. That's going to be my next bike. I'm confident about that, but I don't think it's out there.
Yeah, I don't. And I think mostly because those bikes kind of come as they're needed, and they kind of fit into what people buy them for. And I don't know that there's anything to do. I mean, and that's a whole series of podcasts and videos that we can get into about, what you can do and not do to those type bikes. But we've said in one of our other episodes that and I don't think I'm off by saying this, but it's a Harley world and everything else just kind of lives in it. Yeah. So with that being said, tuners are a biker's best friend from the beginning of a build, whether it's a stage 1 or all the way to a big bore. It is your friend because it is going to make what you do to your bike work well.
Yeah. And I dare I say it's a necessity.
I agree.
Yeah, you can't give the bike more fuel and give the bike more air and not tell the computer what to do with it.
Right.
You can't leave those exhaust valves and those intake valves open longer and overlap and all those things that they do without controlling the air and the fuel coming in through those valves.
Correct.
So tuning is a must.
Right.
Please don't go out and buy a camshaft and slap it in your bike this weekend and buy an air cleaner and an exhaust system and not tune it.
Right.
Because it could be to the detriment of the bike. You could be looking at a motor swap then if you wash your pistons or something. So
it is part of your due diligence.
It is.
And we will continue to say that term as you are discovering what cam you want, and as you're discovering what oil pump and what the build products you want in your bike. This is the next phase, if not maybe at the same time. You've got to figure the tune out, and I guess out of everything about the motorcycle sitting here right now, I guess I probably know less about the tune than I do anything else. But I think I know enough to help somebody if they need help from the aspect of how important it is, what it does to the bike, what options are out there, and getting you at least to a point to where you're asking the correct questions and you're talking to the correct people.
Yeah. The only thing that I can say with 100% certainty is that you need a tune.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, even if it's a Screaming Eagle, because they offer a tune from factory, but then they offer another tune that is more build oriented that can assist in your bike running smoothly once you have built it with your new products that you've put into it.
Yeah. And one thing that we've mentioned before in previous podcasts is being diligent, knowing what your end result's going to be, or what your end goal is, rather. Some of us may never reach that result.
Is it open-ended?
But we have a goal,
That's
right?
That's right.
So, and working towards that, and that's where I failed early on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, I went out and I did my stage 1 build with my air cleaner and my slip-ons, and the salesman said, "Oh, well, you need a tuner," and so I bought the Harley-Davidson tuner.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a few months, I'm ready for a camshaft. Well, now do I want a Harley-Davidson camshaft? Heck no, that's not fun. We want something else. So
that's right.
Now I need a tuner that works with that camshaft. And in essence, now I have some really good paperweights for my desk.
Sure.
That are Screaming Eagle tuners. They're of no value to me anymore. Had I realized that early on, I wouldn't have wasted that. What are they, $350?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I could have put a couple $100s with it and went with something else.
Right. And I think that's I think that's something that I wish that we've had this conversation, that I wish that I would have had, and I know you do too, early on. Look, disclaimer: we're not certified. We're not engineers. We don't even do this mechanically at all. We're enthusiasts. We love to watch the process. We love to have knowledge, and that's kind of where we sit. But I would have loved to have listened to a couple of guys like where we're at now early on. Look, I watched the YouTube videos of the professionals. Mm-hmm. You did too. I listened to the podcast of the professionals. They called dyno numbers and curves and crossing points and stuff that I'm like, what? I couldn't get it. I am mechanically inclined, but not to that degree. I would have loved to have had a couple of, or a group of podcast guys that were just amateurs like us, telling basic black and white information that could make me decide on how I needed to proceed with the build. I think I said that right.
So for me, it was, you look at some of those guys out there, and we've talked about Kevin Baxter, Baxter's Garage.
Great
I watch
guy.
his stuff.
Great guy. Kevin, like you, buddy. You're good.
I'd love to have you build a bike for me one day. But he gets into some technical jargon that I really don't feel like, or early on I didn't feel like applied to me. I didn't feel like he was speaking to the everyday rider. I didn't feel like he was speaking to the weekend day tripper.
That's right.
Going to Nakalula Falls.
That's right.
But
he's cracking a crankshaft, a crankcase, and pulling out the crankshaft, and that we were nowhere even near there.
Yeah, we weren't there yet, and maybe get there, maybe won't get there, but I felt like he was talking to the guys running up and down the drag strip for thousands of dollars.
That's right. Or the mechanics in the dealership,
and
if they wanted to learn.
And not just him, other guys. You watch these camshaft shootout challenge, whatever they are, and I just didn't feel like that related to me. But maybe I should have, and I probably would have given some of these other tuners more consideration than I did early on. But I didn't. Ended up wasting my money in essence on a Screaming Eagle tuner that's now junk.
Yeah.
So, we're both running Thunder Max tuners,
right?
In all of our bikes.
Correct.
I happened into Thunder Max. We can talk about that a little while later, but it's a great product. Dare I say, don't have any complaints about that. It's yet to be determined, but so far my experience has been okay. the appeal of the Thundermax to me was it was self-tuning, and I say that in air quotes because I don't know that everybody in the community will agree with me on that, but it does, within reason, have the ability to adjust your air-fuel ratios within a set parameter.
I think the auto-tune is their term.
Wave tune.
Yeah, it's allowing the bike to make adjustments on the fly. I put the first one in back in April when I did the Road Glide, and I kind of knew. Well, I had done some due diligence. In a little back note, I had the head pipe swapped on my Limited back in March when we went to Daytona.
Oh yeah.
And so I wanted to go with the Power Vision. But we had all kinds of problems, and again, that again is meat for another day to eat. But wound up reverting from the Power Vision back to the Screaming Eagle, and Kevin, did me right. I got no complaints. Reinhardt system they put on, but turns out that apparently there was some issues with the RDRS system on the 21. Still remains to be seen to a degree, or remains to be confirmed.
But you're still running factory camshaft at this point.
But at this point, I had no build. It was just a head pipe. That was it. That was all I did. But had some issues. So went back with the Screaming Eagle, ran it that way until we recently built it. In April, when I built the Road Glide, I knew I wanted to get away from, or at least I thought I wanted to get away from, doing a dyno and the Screaming Eagle. So Thundermax was out there. I opted for it, put it in. I have absolutely no complaints. It has performed as expected. I have made a few changes on the bike along the way, from an air cleaner to some other things, and I can hear and feel the adjustments on the bike as I'm maneuvering it around. Is it, cliff dropping, drastic? No, it's not. But if you're in tune to your motor and you know what it sounds like, when it's making changes, you can hear it, you can feel it, and I like that.
And so the way it does that is with wideband O2 sensors.
Correct.
So from the factory, if you don't know, Harley ships these bikes with what they call narrow band O2 sensors in the exhaust manifolds that measure the oxygen content, and they're very limited in what they can measure.
Correct.
Is that valid? So you replace those with wideband O2 sensors that have a much broader range of detection, I guess, that allows that ECM that's on the touring bikes right underneath the seat, sitting on top of the battery, O2 sensors run in, plug in there, and that makes all of your air-fuel combo ratios determinations there.
Right.
So a little computer that does that. And it can make changes for elevation. It can make changes for changes in exhaust systems, or maybe even as far as different fuel types.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I think once the air enters into your throttle body and starts processing, or the motor starts processing, it's doing its job, I guess I should say. And the air starts exiting out of and through your head pipe, then your ECM kicks in and starts tasting, what it's sending out, and determining if it's a proper mixture, if it's getting the right performance, and then it starts making adjustments on the fly. It's not to say that there's not other tuners out there that can also do similar things, but that was one of the big things with the Thundermax that that I fell in love with initially. And then DJ came along and wound up putting 3 of them on his 3, and we're very, very pleased. If tomorrow something happened, I bought another bike and had put a Power Vision on it, I probably wouldn't complain, because they're a good product as well. Yeah. The Screaming Eagle tuner that they put on the builds they do from the Harley, I'm sure it's a good tune as well. I had it on mine after they did the head pipe. It sufficed and did its job. It is important that you know how all of this stuff works in conjunction to make the bike run properly. you know, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but, you know, when I'm on the interstate, and we both have diesel trucks, they're a little newer, but I can tell when I'm going down the road and I hit a pre-compliant behind a diesel truck that's pre-compliant to exhaust, because it gets in the cab of my truck and almost suffocates me. It puts out a lot of fumes. That being said, it takes a lot to go with a motorcycle when you're building it, to make sure that, you know, whatever's coming out the end of that slip-on at the back of that bike is the best performance exhaust that's possible. And I think in order to get that, a tuner plays a huge role in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't want to wash your cylinders with fuel.
Right.
You don't want to waste fuel,
right,
and just be dumping fuel out the end of the exhaust. You don't want to be giving it too much air and not enough fuel, or you're going to sacrifice performance, i.e. power.
Right.
So measuring that end result of combustion and saying, yeah, you're rich, you're lean, we're going to make an adjustment, seemed to be the ticket for me. What other products are out there? You mentioned the Power Vision.
Right.
I know there's TTS.
Right.
Vance and Hines Fuel Pack.
Right.
The Screaming Eagle. Are there others that you know of?
I think does S&S make a tuner? I'm looking here. I don't. I know they're involved in some capacity, but I don't know if they specifically make a.
I'm not familiar with one.
Tuner
Maybe there are out there.
There are a lot of options that that you can choose from, and what happens in this process? Again, back to what he said earlier. These ECMs, the brains of fuel and air mixture of your motor, sits under your seat, plugs in, and you know there are what we call, if you're in the computer world, then you know programming. You know, if my laptop sitting on this desk right here has got an operating system on it, and it has been programmed with that operating system to function based on the hardware that's in it. And your ECMs are mapped is the term, but they place a program on that ECM that is as close to what the bike's parts and performance has. And then they make adjustments down the road a little bit here at a time with a laptop, your mechanic or whoever it may be, to fine tune it and to get it. If you've ever heard the term dyno, then you know that's what we're talking about, because that's what they do when they take the bike up and they rev it up at certain RPMs for a certain period of time, and the computer says, hey, now do this, now do this, now do this. And they're making adjustments on the fly, and the computer's doing a whole bunch of stuff to it. And at the end, you're hoping to roll it off, and $600 later,
there's a
and it be running fine.
There's a specific ratio of air to fuel for, I believe, every 150 RPMs in every gear.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I've read that, but I don't recall.
I think that's the numbers. Y'all, don't put me on blast, as they might say, if that's wrong, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. If we were to rewind that, we can just say there's a lot.
Yeah,
okay?
That's right.
So we know we got to have a tuner. I'd say the most simplistic would be the Harley Screaming Eagle tuner. Now they make just the Harley Screaming Eagle, then they make a Pro Street, something like that.
Pro Street, yeah.
Where you can actually Bluetooth your phone to the tuner and you can make some changes.
That's right.
I don't, unless you're familiar with this, I don't recommend anybody going in and making their own changes unless you know what you're doing. I would think the Harley tuner is going to have some pretty narrow adjustments that you can make compared to maybe some of the other tuners. Those are going to be the most simplistic, probably most affordable. But you're going to be limited to basically Harley's camshaft.
Right.
If you go to a aftermarket non-OEM camshaft, then you're going to have to get away from that and go to the Power Vision, the Thunder Max, the TTS, something like that. And those, in the most simplistic form, is basically just somebody hooks up their computer that has a software system.
Correct.
That can communicate with your factory ECM and make those changes.
Right.
I think that's what you did with your Ultra Limited to begin with. Was they just plug up their computer and they download a canned map, that's what they call it.
That's right.
And they just dump it into that ECM and say, "Here, this is what we want you to do."
That's right.
With no regard for the bike, no regard really for weather conditions, just these are the safe parameters.
This is
a
base to get you started.
Yep.
You know, we used to have a program when I worked in the networking group at one of the local banks for years. We had a CD that we ghosted the computers. Basically, we popped that CD in, and it had the basic necessities for that computer to function, and that was it. And that's kind of what these ECMs come with. It's a basic map. Like when I bought my ThunderMax for the Limited, I bought it from Cycle Solutions. They actually inquired about what I was going to do camshaft-wise, what I was going to do this, what I was going to do that. I input all that information, provided, and they loaded a base map. Now my Road Glide, it came straight from ThunderMax, unmapped. So our local mechanic and I, when we got ready to do it, we hooked our laptop up to it, logged in, and we loaded a base map out of ThunderMax's application on their laptop. So it's not hard to find it, and I know we seem to be, some of this may seem to be getting kind of way up there, but it's really not. It's somewhat elementary. It's mechanics. It's the things that it takes for you to have a smooth running bike. And DJ said this earlier. You know, we're sitting here talking, and we will continue to talk power and bikes and changes and this, that, and the other. But we want to make sure that we emphasize that you speak to your local mechanic or your dealer, or make a phone call to these companies that are out there, Fuel Moto, Fueling, Trask, ThunderMax. They'll talk to you. I mean, they're just good old guys that are out there doing, most of this stuff's made in the U.S. and they'll talk to you. They're not beyond having a conversation with you at some point. You may have to leave a message. They'll call back or something like that. But they'll talk to you and say, "Hey, what are you doing? Give me what you're looking for," and they'll help you out. But definitely get feedback from those type people. What we want to provide you is kind of some elementary information that kind of gets you in the right direction when it comes to finalizing that first good build on your bike. Because that first good build, we talked about that 5K. That's going to include your tuner. You've got to put that on there. So then that's a $300 or $400, maybe $500, and then you're going to do the whole. If you do the dyno, then you're adding another $600 to it. Or if you do the ThunderMax, then you're setting it about $1,100 anyway. We get no sponsorship from these guys at the moment. Maybe one day down the road, but for now we do not. So when we start name dropping, we're just doing it based off a couple of guys that are just sitting here knowing what's out there.
Yeah.
And you can go online and find the same information that we're providing. So. Yeah,
and I know if we went to our mechanic that did our builds, in our conversations with him, he was not a proponent for the ThunderMax.
No, he was not.
I don't think he's super familiar with it. Obviously, he messed with it a little bit, knew his way around, but I think he was kind of pointing us towards the Power Vision, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
That one in the Screaming Eagle, he said he had done a lot of the Power Vision and knew more about it. So.
And I told you, and I think I mentioned it a couple episodes ago. I had a conversation the other day with Bob from Fuel Moto. Cool dude. I sat in my garage and we just talked for 40 minutes. Almost an hour that I'm just in this guy's ear, and he's asking me about my bike and what upgrades I'd done and how I like to ride, and we talked about tuners. We can talk about what sparked that conversation later on, but he was a proponent for the Power Vision as well. That seemed to be kind of what he preferred and what he ran on his bike. And the cool thing about Fuel Moto is, you can talk to those guys and you can tell them, hey, this is the air cleaner I'm running, this is the exhaust system that I'm running, this is the cam that I'm running, and they've probably dynoed one in their facility with damn near those same components.
Exact match. That's right.
And so when you buy the tuner from them, if you buy it from them, they'll provide you that tune.
Right.
With that tuner. You plug it in the bike, or plug into the bike. There's a little bit of difference in the Power Vision and ThunderMax, and the ThunderMax actually replaces the factory ECM. There's some pros and cons to that we can discuss in a minute, but Power Vision just remaps
the existing
the
factory
ECM.
or the OEM ECM,
so,
correct.
there's benefit to that as well. But it still kind of works. It has to utilize the narrowband O2 sensors. I do think they have some sort of device that you can go to a wide band and do an auto tune.
Right.
But hey, their maps are supposed to be legit. You could put it on the bike and never touch it. Could you take it to a dyno and have a dyno tuner tune it and get a little more performance out of it? Probably.
Yeah.
But the conversation you and I have had before is we're not the guys that are going to chase 2 horsepower.
No.
That's not relevant to me.
I
think I would be happy with the base tune that they sent me.
I mean, if I ever put mine on the dyno, and I'll say that I probably will at some point, but the conversation that I've had with our mechanic is I'm only on there for 15 minutes because I just want to know where the numbers are from an aspect of horsepower and torque. Mm-hmm. I don't need him to make changes, and that's typically what takes time on that is they're making computer changes. All I want him to do is hook it up and tell me what kind of horsepower I'm getting, and that's really it. It's not to make adjustments on the fly from that perspective. I find, and let me backtrack to something you said a minute ago. If you bought a bike and the guy you bought it from said, yeah, man, I built it, I put a cam in it, and, I did this, that, and the other, and, and you buy it and you feel like maybe that you get told it needs a tune or something along those lines. Here's the kicker. In order to put an effective tune on a bike, you need to know what's in that bike. And if somebody's cammed it or somebody's done some work on it and you don't know what cam's in it, you don't know what this, that, and the other on the internal components are, you have a little bit of a disadvantage. Is it going to be an end-all, be-all that you just can't make it run right? No, not really. But if you do buy one and somebody says they've done some work on it, try to find out what you can, the most you can, as to, hey, what cam did you use? Hey, what tuner did you use? Do you have the tuner license? Because those licenses go with the bikes. Once they've been tied to the bike, there is no separating them. That license is burnt and spent and is only tied to that VIN number. So if you buy a bike, oh yeah, man, I tuned this thing with a Power Vision. That's awesome, dude. Can you provide me with your license? Can you give me basically your proof that you tuned this? So if I take it to my mechanic, that he can manipulate it and operate and function with it in some capacity. So, but what cam is in it, all these type things, air cleaner's pretty obvious to see and some of those things. But head pipe, if you've got heat shields and you don't know what head pipe he put on it, you need to ask those questions. Hey, what head pipe do you use? Because it matters when it comes to your mechanic tuning your bike.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked about dynos, and y'all are probably familiar with the dyno, but the guy parks the bike on the dyno and just runs it through its paces, right?
He's told what to do by the computer.
Yeah,
for the most part.
They sit it there, they bring it up to normal operating temperature, and then they're going to do a first gear pull, a second gear pull, all the way through the throttle, and try and come up with an index for what that AFR or active fuel ratio is at that RPM and that gear at that speed, and then tell the computer this is how many grams of fuel, this is how much air. You're going to open up the throttle body this much. So that said, you don't have to dyno one. This can be done on the street. As a matter of fact, when I talked to Fuel Moto, I was talking about a tuner for my Tri-Glide, and he made no qualms about it. Hey, our dyno can't do a trike, and that's something common that I've run into with that trike. Is not everybody's dyno is wide enough to hold a trike. So when they do these tunes for the trike, they're doing it on the road.
Right.
They're hooking up their computer and they're putting that bike through its paces. Now, hopefully they're doing it on a closed road. Surely they are, right?
Surely.
But that's where you get into the benefit of a dyno, in my opinion. Even though I don't necessarily need a dyno with my Thundermax in order to create a map, do I want to get out on the road and do a full throttle 6-gear pull?
Yeah.
No.
Not necessarily.
I don't want to do 140 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Not interested. So, there's a safety side of it too, where if you really want the full map, you really want it learned and all that, doing it on the dyno is a safe way of doing it.
Right. And it's not to say that it's there's a negative to doing it. I think, just to clarify some of my statements about dynoing is, for me specifically, if I had $600 to $800 to put it on a dyno, or $1,000, whatever that number is, I probably would find something else to spend $1,000 on. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if I did have it and I was really curious about my numbers, put it on there and find out my numbers. Maybe it wouldn't cost as much. I think our guy said it would be, about an hour. So if you're talking about an hour's labor, maybe you're talking about only a couple $100, and you get to kind of figure out what your torque and what your horsepower is. Mm-hmm. But if you really want to lay down a thorough map and you want to do a full-blown dyno, then you're probably looking at between $600 and $1,000, depending on who does it and what all they have to do.
And we'll go back to what we've mentioned before. Talk to people. Talk to. I would say if you're really considering a dyno tune, I'd probably go to the racetrack.
Yeah.
I'd find out what night they're running the Harleys down at your local drag strip, and I'd talk to those guys and say, hey, who's doing your tuning?
That's right.
Because not everybody that has access to a dyno knows what to do with it.
That's right. And a lot of your dealers will have them, but they don't have people that are certified to operate. They may tell you they can put it on there and do something to it, but that doesn't mean that they...
Yeah. So that's been my reluctance as far as putting it on the dyno is, I really don't know who to trust to just take my money.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give you a prime example of that. We were in Daytona in the spring, or in the fall. Went to the Broken Spoke, hung out there for a little while, and all of a sudden Jeremy and I start hearing, what the heck? There's a dyno trailer around here somewhere. Mm-hmm. So we walked down into this field where it looks like, I don't know, it looks like a borderline where it might be a junkyard.
Yeah. People
park cars, whatever's hanging around, and he's got an old trailer back here and bikes up there, and he's yin-yanging them. And I'm like,
nice.
Yeah, don't know if I want this guy dyno in my, but maybe. But I'd have a conversation with him at least.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't mean to assume that everyone running a dyno is incapable of doing it. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we have fallen victim in the past to assuming that the people at the rally,
right, have my best interest at heart.
Right. And
when they're there to make money.
When we sit back and look at it with a business acumen, they're there to turn a profit.
That's right.
I can't fault them for that.
No, I do the same
thing. They've allotted a certain amount of time, and they've accepted a certain amount of money.
That's right.
And
they're paying for that spot.
Long. So they want your bike out of that trailer and the next one in just as quick as
possible.
There, so.
They're paying. I'd heard rumor that the spots at Teddy Morrison's there in that asphalt parking lot were going for about $10,000.
Wow.
So yes, and then in the fall they go for about $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about they've got a criteria they got to meet.
Yeah,
you and I, we own our businesses, and
they got to roll a lot of bikes.
We have to do certain business to keep things rolling. Look, bottom line is that, kind of in closing here today on this episode, is that lots of things go into all of this build. You definitely don't have to do it all. But there are some things that you definitely need to do, and tuning is one of them as you start the process. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Again, our email address is
rrshoptalk@gmail.com.
And we're going to put up our information at the end of the videos that are going to show our Instagram and TikTok and other locations that you can get a hold of us at. And we'll be glad to answer anything. And I promise you this. The information that we will provide will either be factual and founded, and we can provide and back it up, or we'll send you to somebody that can give it to you.
Yeah.
I have no desire whatsoever to mislead you or to tell you something that's not accurate, nor does DJ or John or Jeremy. We're here to assist and help and provide the best information we can on an amateur level for you guys to build and perform and get performance out of your bikes that you'll be happy with in the end. So,
agreed.
What you got to close with?
That's it. Keep on the lookout for the next episode to drop. Look forward to carrying you guys along our journey, and I hope you find some value.
Absolutely. Love you guys. Take care. God bless.